Rain battered the rusted rooftops as Amara stood trembling in a torn wedding gown, her hands bound not by love but by a stepmother's greed. Beside her, Chike, the quiet, poor mechanic, waited at the altar in a faded suit, his eyes calm yet unreadable. The villagers whispered, "A beggar marrying a beggar." To Madame Felicia, Amara's cruel stepmother, it was justice served, forcing the orphan she loathed into a life of poverty. But as thunder cracked and Chike's old silver watch glimmered beneath the candlelight, something about him didn't fit the picture of a man who had nothing. His gaze held secrets too deep for a man with empty pockets. Who was he really? Why did he choose her, the girl everyone else threw away? And when the truth comes out, what will he do that will shake the entire village to its core? The priest's voice echoed through the small, leaking chapel. "Do you, Amara Cole? Take this man." "I do," she whispered, barely audible, her lips trembling. Felicia sat in the front pew, her red umbrella dripping beside her, a proud smirk painted across her powdered face, finally rid of the useless girl, she thought. No more burden. Outside, the storm roared louder as if the heavens disapproved. The wind flickered the candles, casting shadows across Cheek's face. He slipped the ring, thin and rusted, onto Amara's finger. His touch was gentle, too gentle for someone the world called poor. When the ceremony ended, the villagers shuffled out, whispering gossip and laughter. "Even love runs from the poor," one old man muttered. "Two beggars can't feed each other," another chuckled. Amara stood still, rain soaking her veil. She wanted to cry, but the tears refused to fall. Every time she looked at her stepmother's satisfied grin, the pain hardened into quiet defiance. Chike turned to her, voice low. "Let's go home." Home. The word sounded strange to her. They walked through muddy paths, her sandals cutting into her blistered feet. The house they reached wasn't much. 4 walls, a creaky door, and a roof that leaked more than it covered. Inside, an old mattress lay in the corner and a flickering lantern glowed weakly. Amara sat on the floor, pulling off her veil. "You didn't have to go through this," she said quietly. Chike knelt beside her. "Maybe I did," she frowned. "You don't even know me." He smiled faintly. "Not yet, but I will." His words carried a strange warmth, a confidence that didn't belong to a man with nothing. She caught sight of his watch again, the silver one he wore even while working at the garage. It shimmered under the lantern light, engraved with the initials DC. "Who's DC?" she asked, curiosity slipping out. Chike looked away, his expression unreadable. "Someone I used to know." A silence stretched between them, soft, uneasy, charged with something unspoken. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating their faces through the cracked window. Amara didn't know it yet, but the man sitting beside her wasn't the one her stepmother thought she'd married. He was something entirely different. The morning after the wedding, sunlight struggled through the broken shutters, cutting across the small room like narrow blades of gold. Amara stirred, wrapped in a thin blanket that smelled faintly of engine oil and rain. Chike was already gone. On the small wooden table beside the mattress, a loaf of bread and a note waited. "Went to work early. Eat before you faint again. Chike." Her chest tightened. He noticed. No one had ever noticed when she skipped meals before. Not her stepmother, not even the neighbors. She tore a small piece of the bread, eating slowly as her eyes wandered around the room. Every object told a story. Old tools, spare car parts, a Bible with frayed edges, and on the windowsill, an elegant black pen that didn't belong in a mechanic's home. It gleamed with gold initials, CDC. She picked it up, turning it over. The weight felt expensive, deliberate. What kind of mechanic uses a pen like this? She murmured. Outside, the sound of hammering and distant engines echoed from the nearby road. She wrapped a scarf around her head and stepped outside to fetch water. The neighbors watched, whispering as she passed. That's the girl Felicia threw away. Married a nobody. Some women just have bad luck. Amara kept her head high, but each word cut like glass. When she returned, she noticed Cheek's bag on the floor, half open. A letter peeked out, sealed in cream paper with a golden emblem. Her hand hovered over it, trembling. She shouldn't look, but curiosity gnawed at her. Before she could decide, the door creaked open. Cheeky stepped in, his shirt damp with sweat and rain. The faint scent of motor oil and something unfamiliar. Expensive cologne. "You're up early," he said, setting down a brown envelope. I wanted to clean," Amara stammered. He smiled gently. "You don't have to. You've done enough." Her eyes darted to the envelope he carried. He noticed. Without a word, he placed it on the table and began unpacking food, fresh fruits, rice, even meat. She froze. "Chike, how did you afford all this?" He looked up, his expression unreadable. "Let's just say, not everything is as it seems. But eat," he interrupted softly, then added, "I don't want my wife starving again." Something about the way he said "my wife" made her heart twist. That night, while Cheeky bathed behind the house, she unfolded the brown envelope. Inside were receipts from a city hotel, one of the most luxurious in the capital, and a name written across the top. Damien Cole Industries. Her pulse quickened. She remembered the initials on the pen, CDC, Cheek Damien Cole. The lantern flickered. She looked toward the door, the sound of water splashing outside growing faint. Who exactly had she married? And why did the name Damien Cole sound so familiar, like a whisper from a world far beyond her own? Amara couldn't sleep that night. The rain had stopped, but the sound of her heart wouldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the golden initials, DC, burning behind her eyelids. By morning, she had folded the receipts back into the envelope and hidden them beneath the floorboard near the bed. Cheeky moved quietly around the room, humming as he buttoned his shirt. There was something graceful about the way he did even the simplest things, as if he had once been used to more than grease and dust. "You're quiet today," he said, tying his boots. "Just tired," she lied. He looked at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Don't worry. Things will change soon." The words hung heavy in the air. "Change how?" she wanted to ask, but the way he said it made her afraid of the answer. When he left for work, Amara sat alone in the dim room, replaying everything. The watch, the pen, the envelope, the hotel receipts. Each clue felt like a puzzle piece leading to a truth she wasn't ready to face. A sharp knock startled her. She opened the door and froze. Madame Felicia. Her stepmother stood on the threshold, clutching a black umbrella, her perfume strong enough to choke the air. "Well, look at you," Felicia sneered, her eyes sweeping over Amara's modest dress. "Still alive. I was sure your beggar husband would have run off by now." Amara's throat tightened. "What do you want?" Felicia pushed past her into the room, her heels clicking on the uneven floor. She looked around with disgust. "You call this a home?" "My God, Amara, even rats would file complaints here." Amara folded her arms. "Why are you here?" Felicia smirked. "Oh, I heard something interesting. Your husband, this Cheek, was seen at the city bank. The same one used by Damien Cole Industries." Amara's stomach dropped. "You're lying." Felicia laughed, a sound like broken glass. "You think I don't recognize that name? Damien Cole, the billionaire from the papers. If your husband's involved with that kind of man, he's either a thief or a liar." Before Amara could respond, Felicia's eyes landed on the floorboard where the edge of the envelope peeked out. "What's this?" Amara stepped forward quickly. "It's nothing." Felicia's grin widened. "Oh, it's something." She bent down, but Amara blocked her path. The tension thickened. A silent war between mother and daughter, not of blood, but of power. "You sold me to him," Amara whispered, her voice trembling. "You didn't care if I lived or died." Felicia straightened, her eyes cold. "You were a burden, Amara. I gave you a future." "A future in poverty?" Felicia's lips curved. "Some of us are meant to serve, dear. You should thank me." The door burst open. Cheeky stood there, soaked in sweat and rain again, his gaze sharp as lightning. "Everything okay here?" Felicia's smile faltered. She studied him closely, her greedy eyes narrowing at his silver watch. "No," she said slowly. "But it will be, once I find out who you really are." The rain returned that evening, soft at first, then heavy, like the sky was trying to wash away sins it couldn't bear to keep. Amara sat in silence as Cheeky paced the small room, wiping sweat from his forehead. Felicia had left hours ago, but her words lingered like poison. You didn't have to be rude to her, Amara said quietly. She had no reason to be here, Cheeky replied, not looking at her. She's my stepmother. She's your tormentor. His tone cut through her, sharper than she expected. Still, she said softly, you don't know her like I do. Cheeky turned then, eyes glinting in the lantern light. And you don't know me like you think you do. Amara froze. The air seemed to still between them. What do you mean by that? He looked away, his hands trembling slightly as he removed his silver watch and placed it on the table. The engraved initials caught the light, DC, brighter than ever. When I met you, he began, I was searching for something real, something that couldn't be bought. You talk like someone who's lost everything, she said softly. He smiled bitterly. Maybe I have. A car horn blared outside. Both of them turned toward the window. Headlights cut through the rain as a black SUV pulled up. Two men in suits stepped out, their umbrellas snapping open in perfect sync. Amara's pulse raced. Who are they? She whispered. Cheeky's jaw tightened. People I used to know. Before she could ask more, the door swung open. One of the men stepped inside, his face calm but commanding. Sir, he said respectfully, your father has been trying to reach you for days. He's not well. Please come home. Amara blinked. Father? She turned to Cheeky. What are they talking about? The man's gaze shifted to her. You must be Mrs. Cole. The name hung heavy in the air. Cole. Like thunder trapped in a small room. Cheeky exhaled slowly, as if surrendering to something he could no longer hide. Amara, he said quietly. My full name is Cheeky Damien Cole. I'm the son of Damien Cole, the owner of the company your stepmother mentioned. The room spun. Amara gripped the chair to steady herself. You're what? He stepped closer, voice low and sincere. I didn't lie to you, I hid it. I needed to know if someone could love me without my father's money. Tears blurred her vision. So all this time, I wanted to start over, to understand what life felt like for those my family forgot. Amara looked at the men in suits, their expensive watches glinting like mirrors of her husband's. She remembered Felicia's sneer, the villagers' laughter, the pity in their eyes. Now, none of it made sense. I have to go to him, Cheeky said. My father is dying. Amara's voice cracked. And me? Do I go with you? He hesitated, then reached for her hand. Yes, you're my wife, Amara. Wherever I go, you belong with me. Outside, the rain fell harder, drowning out the whispers of the past. But in that moment, Amara knew. The truth was only the beginning. The black SUV rolled up the long, winding driveway of Cole Manor, its tires humming against marble stone. Amara sat frozen beside Cheeky, her reflection trembling in the tinted glass. Beyond the iron gates rose a mansion so vast it seemed to touch the clouds, columns, fountains, and chandeliers glowing behind glass walls. She'd seen places like this only in magazines sold at the local market. But now she was living one. As the car stopped, two guards rushed to open the doors. Cold night air swept in. The scent of roses and wealth hung everywhere. Amara clutched her shawl tighter as she stepped out. Her sandals, still muddy from the village, looked pitiful against the marble steps. A woman's voice sliced through the silence. Chike? From the grand entrance, Mrs. Evelyn Cole, Chike's stepmother, appeared, tall, poised, and perfectly dressed in silk. Her eyes traveled over Amara, head to toe, and froze on the torn edge of her dress. This, Evelyn said coldly, is your wife? Cheeky's jaw tightened. Yes, mother. This is Amara. Her laugh was elegant but cruel. You married a street girl? Amara looked down, fighting the sting in her chest. The servants nearby exchanged glances but said nothing. Before Cheeky could respond, another figure appeared, a frail old man in a wheelchair, his eyes sunken but kind. Damien Cole, the billionaire. His voice was hoarse but steady. Let her be, Evelyn. If she's his choice, she's family. Amara stepped forward and bowed slightly. Good evening, sir. Damien's gaze softened. You have your mother's grace, he said to Cheek, then to Amara, and a strength I recognize. Welcome, my dear. But Evelyn's glare could have frozen fire. She turned sharply to the staff. Prepare the guest wing. not the main suite. Amara's heart sank at the word guest. Later that night, in the vast guest room that felt more like a museum, Amara wandered to the window. The city lights stretched endlessly. Behind her, Cheeky stood silently, his reflection blending with hers in the glass. "I told you it wouldn't be easy," he said softly. She turned. "They hate me. They don't know you yet. Will they ever?" she asked, voice trembling. "You're the heir to everything, Chike. I'm just—" "Don't," he interrupted. "You're my wife. That's all that matters." She wanted to believe him, but the way Evelyn had looked at her, the quiet disgust, the restrained fury, made her stomach twist. A knock came at the door. A maid entered hesitantly, holding a silver tray. "Madam," she said, "Mrs. Cole asked me to deliver this." Amara took the sealed envelope, puzzled. The maid left quickly, eyes avoiding hers. Inside was a single note written in elegant script. "If you truly love him, leave before morning. Some worlds were never meant to mix." Amara's fingers trembled. She looked up at Cheeky, asleep on the couch, the weight of his double life pressing down on both of them. For the first time, she wondered, not if he loved her, but if love alone could survive the world she'd just entered. Outside, thunder rolled again, echoing through the mansion halls. And far away, Madame Felicia smiled at a newspaper headline she couldn't yet believe. "Heir to Billionaire Empire returns with mystery village bride." Morning light spilled through the tall glass windows of Cole Manor, touching the marble floors with gold. It should have been peaceful, but the mansion buzzed with tension. Servants hurried through the halls, reporters swarmed the gates, and whispers rippled through every corridor. In the grand dining hall, Cheeky stood at the head of the table dressed in a dark tailored suit, calm, composed, but with fire in his eyes. His father, Damien Cole, sat at the far end, weak but smiling faintly. His stepmother, Evelyn, sat beside him, stiff with irritation. And at the opposite end, nervously twisting her hands, sat Amara, the village girl who'd somehow become the center of their empire's storm. "You called this meeting," Evelyn said coldly. "What's this about?" Cheek's gaze swept across the room. "It's about truth," he said, voice steady, "and about the people who mistake kindness for weakness." Every head turned as he reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded note Evelyn had sent to Amara the night before. He laid it on the table. "I know you told my wife to leave before morning." Evelyn's eyes widened slightly, but her voice stayed sharp. "I was protecting our name, Cheeky. You cannot expect this girl, to represent the Cole legacy." "And yet she already does," he said evenly. "More than anyone here ever has." The room went still. Cheeky looked toward Amara, his expression softening. "When I left home 3 years ago, I wanted to see how people lived without privilege, without power. I found greed, cruelty, and hunger, but I also found her. A woman who had nothing, yet gave everything. She didn't know my name, but she loved me anyway." He turned to his father. "You taught me to lead with heart, not title. I finally understand what that means." Damien smiled weakly. "Then show them." Cheeky nodded. He turned to the press secretary waiting near the door and gestured. The double doors opened, revealing a small crowd of reporters and photographers already setting up cameras. Evelyn gasped. "You didn't—" "I did," Cheeky said calmly. "If we're going to discuss legacy, let the world see what kind it truly is." He took Amara's hand and faced the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet my wife, Amara Cole. Not a socialite, not a model, not a CEO's daughter. She's a woman who was thrown away, yet she's the most honorable person I've ever known. Today she becomes the new head of the Cole Foundation for Women and Children, a billion-dollar trust aimed at giving those like her a voice." The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Evelyn's face drained of color. Even Damien wiped away a tear. Amara stood frozen, the world spinning around her. "Cheek, why would you—" "Because the world needs to see what love can build where cruelty once destroyed," he said softly. "And because I promised you a life better than the one you were forced into." At the back of the hall, a familiar figure appeared, Madame Felicia, clutching a handbag and staring at the scene on live television. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Amara." Amara looked at her, eyes calm, no bitterness left. "Just quiet victory." "I forgive you," she said simply. The cameras caught the moment. The orphan who had been forced to marry a poor man now standing beside a billionaire's son, not as decoration, but as destiny. Outside, the rain began to fall again, not with sorrow this time, but with grace, as if the heavens themselves were applauding the truth. Amara reached for Cheek's hand, her heart steady. She had been sold into a lie, but found a love that money could never buy. And as thunder rolled softly in the distance, the world finally saw what it meant when a poor orphan and a humble heir rewrote the meaning of forever.